Hello, hello. That was a very weird intro, guys. Okay, this is a little nuts. Sandy, I'm going to bring you in a second, but I'm going to tell you what we're going to be talking about tonight. Unity in the classroom, and namely third-party actors coming in and kind of gumming up the works with special programming. I mean, it is a cottage industry right now. I don't have to tell you guys. You know that, you understand it. There's all these actors coming in and creating a lot of consternation with our teachers and a lot of consternation between our parents. I'm going to give you one example really that we've been covering for a while, and it's this gender spectrum. This is actually a program that's not in Pitt County where Sandy's from, but it's a program that's promoting all of this transgender grooming stuff. And again, it's third party, so a lot of parents don't know about it, but school boards are going to vote on it. Isn't that right, Sandy Moyer from Pitt County? You've seen some of this divisive stuff. What do you think of some of the stuff being put into the classroom and being okayed by your school board?
Well, actually, I had a conversation with the teacher. Sorry, I kind of pause there. I had a conversation with the teacher about a couple of days ago, and she told me that leadership had told her that if a child came to a second grader, came to her and asked her and wasn't sure what gender they were, that she could ask them, if the child came up and was questioning what gender they were, she could say, well, what gender do you feel that you are? And they could suggest to that child. And they said, in spite of what the parents say, whatever the child tells you, use their preferred pronouns. And this is a second grade teacher who told me this was happening. So it's not fully implemented, like you said. I'm sorry, I'm trying to fix this, but it is happening at a lower scale in Pitt County. What I have seen a lot of is the diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's peppered throughout the entire curriculum, and talking about, training teachers in culturally responsive attitudes, talking about hiring teachers more from a specific group. I just checked the website the other day. In the parent resource section, they had 4 resources that were addressing race. So I decided to click on the links to check on them. They had like one parenting resource and then 4 of them. One was linked me to an organization called Embrace Race, which is an activist organization, very progressive.
Really?
Then it linked me to another. It was called Little Luminaries. And I click on it. It's very pretty, very attractive. And then when you click on it, when I was reading it, I was like, wow, this person is sounded like a very angry person, identifies herself as they, them, she, her, those are her pronouns. But she goes on and talks about how children might not be aware that they have an unconscious bias. So when these well-behaved children grow up and violence is perpetrated against them, they shouldn't be surprised when that happens. And so, yeah, things like that. Wow. Talking to parents about training their kids in microaggression. And then it went on to talk about how racism isn't just pinned to discrimination against races, but it goes beyond that. It's more of a supremacy mindset. So then it delves into another topic I've never heard of, which is called adult supremacy. Have you ever heard of that?
No, but look, we need more adult supremacy around here because we've got far too many children masquerading as adults. So let me back up and say Sandy Moyer is a candidate we've endorsed for a long, long time. Actually, you've been running for a while up in Pitt County, and you've got a lot of problems there. Just let me ask you, with all the problems that's going on and with the opposition that you've received, I mean, people have been downright nasty. What made you really moved to stand up and put your name in the hat to run for school board?
Because I love my country. I lived in Dominican Republic for 10 years, and I know the difference between living in a third world country and living in America. I couldn't wait to come back when I was 18. And I tell this story a lot, but it's because it's the truth. When I got back, I was so overwhelmed with the generosity that I was received by this country. I never felt that I couldn't accomplish anything. There were really no hindrances for me to do anything when I got back to New York City. There was no impediments. I was able to go to college, married my college sweetheart. And I always told people, I said, I understood the privileges of being an American. I mean, we talked about it all the time in DR. Can't wait to get back. Running water, things like the economy, things that we take for granted here, electricity 24/7, at least until I started teaching my children history. So I homeschooled them. And when I started teaching them history, I was like, wow, yeah, so it's up to us to keep it this way. We don't just come and benefit. We have a responsibility to keep it.
Yeah. And America, look, our democracy is an experiment. It isn't codified. It isn't, set in stone. We have to defend liberty at all points in time. And the smallest unit of government to do that in is, of course, the school board. I mean, you're managing a massive budget. You're hiring and firing people. You're making policies that quite literally, and on both of our minds, it's the most important policy and rules that you could absolutely make. So to that, one of the things, guys, that we have on the EFA questionnaire is we're trying to gauge how much candidates are willing to push back against the state, push back against Catherine Truitt and some of the policies that she's fond of, like SEL, et cetera, because we believe that we need to take the schools back, bring them back to the individual localities. And so, Sandy, you know this because we had to question you on this. What is your plan to keep Raleigh out of the Pitt County classrooms?
I'm sorry, I kind of paused there. Can you repeat that? Sorry, Sloan.
Yeah, I wanted to know, what are some of the ways that you can keep things like, well, let's say, for instance, a lot of school boards this year have struggled because if they did not want to put social emotional learning in and use the questionnaires, they would be penalized and have to give up something on the order of 30% of their funding. So it makes it very hard for you to keep Raleigh's policies out of the classroom. What do you think you're going to do about that?
Well, that is a question I've been asking myself since we decided. And I actually talked to some legislators in Raleigh, talking to them about how we need to make sure that we are able to give back the power to the local counties, like you had said. But I think that some of it, I was talking to some business leaders, local business leaders, and telling them, hey, if it comes to a point where federal money, is attached to transgender ideology, which very well may be, and we're talking about it being 9% of the budget, right? Right now, our county contributes about 10 plus percent of the budget. And of course, most of it is from the state. But I was like, what can we do as a local county to come in and make up for the difference until and I also have been talking to some of the people who had told me there's a lot of money already in the budget that's not being allocated properly. So if we have to say no to money that's tied to ideology, we might just look at what we already have, because there is money that's not being used. There's a lot of money that's not being accounted for. There are things that we could cut down on, administrative positions that are completely unnecessary. So there's money to be found even right now without even having to ask the county for it. We could probably look at the budget and find some of that money.
Right. So it's not being deployed into the classroom.
No,
exactly. But as you intimated, most of the money does come from the state, and therein lies the problem. I mean, the state is coming up with some of the most noxious crap you'd ever want to see. And so let's say that you had all conservatives on the school board. Well, it doesn't do a lot of good when you have the state doing mandatory teacher training, when they're doing these standards. So the state will tell you, the state meaning the state school board, who, makes a lot of these policies. They'll tell you that, hey, look, we're only setting the standards, but the curriculum is provided by the school. The problem is, and you're well aware of this, that once the new standards are changed, like we saw with social studies, well, the schools don't have the resources to make their curriculum. And so here's what the learning materials. Here's what happens. You get those third parties that we were talking about. Third parties come in and say, wouldn't you know, I know how to do this. We know how to do this. This is a specialized curriculum. We do this all the time. And there comes the problem, Sandy, where there are not curriculum writers already in the district in place, and a third party has to be utilized. Third parties don't give a damn about Pitt County or any of our localities, right? And so our idea is having, continuously filling those slots. The school board chooses, okay, we're going to have a panel of 12 teachers that we're going to select that will write this curriculum, et cetera. Otherwise, you're depending on the superintendent. And we all know how far that's gotten us. What do you think of that idea?
I think it was great. I actually was talking to somebody about how we need to have two committees. One has to be a finance committee. And in that curriculum committee, basically what you just said, have the teachers come in, look at the materials that are needed, get some of this feedback, and have them sit down and write some of this stuff. And by the way, some of these teachers are ready to go.
Yeah,
they would love to do something like this, because a lot of these things that are being passed on by the state, they're so convoluted and complex. A lot of them are really, they're overburdened. They're not even able to teach the kids because they have to meet these standards that are almost impossible. And they have these blanket statements of, this is where this kid needs to be at this level. But how to get them there is the problem. And so I would think they would have the knowledge, obviously, and the experience to be able to help write a curriculum that best fits their classroom. So a curriculum committee is one of the priorities. That's one of the things that we want to do once we get in.
Okay, great. And I love what you're saying, once we get in, because you will get in. We're going to make sure of it, girl. We're going to make sure of it. So yeah, I mean, so it's the divisiveness. So going back to one thing that you said when you first began, and it's that this trans curriculum, this isn't anti-trans, my friends. This is at a very early age, as early as kindergarten, teaching that mommy and daddy don't know what your gender is. Nobody knows what your gender is. I mean, first of all, whether you're religious or not, the material fact is that already separates a child from God. And if their parents are believers, that's going to be a big problem. It separates them from God because, as we all know, God really doesn't make mistakes, right? And that's the one thing that every religion, no matter what you practice, that's kind of the gig, right? God's perfect. Mm-hmm. And so, but it really does. It not only throws a wrench in between the child and God, it throws a wrench between the child and parents, because the child may be thinking, well, maybe mommy and daddy does make mistakes. Mm-hmm. Maybe, whatever. It sets it up for a lot of divisiveness.
You're 100% correct, Sloan. And that's, to your point, is what I was talking about when they offered those parent resources, that anti-another, which was anti-racism 102, and then it talks about adult supremacy, which talks about, here is a parent who's imposing their will on a child who's a victim of this hierarchical structure that they didn't ask to be a part of. What are they trying to do already? See, that's the ultimate goal, though. The ultimate goal is for the state to have full control of the kids, and you know that.
Yeah, of course. That's the ultimate goal. And I mean, they'll stop at nothing to do it. And so one of the things that we have been really animated about, and for good reason, is this new health standards, the new health and science standards, which of course have the new sex ed standards written into it. This is going to be a big problem because we've got a huge LGBTQ activist who is in charge of writing this. Big time problem. And so this is another example of where the state, is going to come in and make these standards. They'll tell you, oh, it's just a general standard. They make them so fine-tuned, as they did with the social studies standard, that you have to teach this. As you see right now, this genderbread person and this gender unicorn, which is transgender grooming, is what you're looking at, being taught at a very young age. This actually, Sandy, was something that was brought in 2015 by a woman named Ellen Essick, who is at the DPI, who will be charged with doing these standards. But let's just say that the standards recommend something like this. How was a school board member supposed to push back against that?
I think it's almost like, how I heard this lady say this is really good. If it's not following policy, by the way, we're still subjected to the North Carolina Constitution, right? So if it's not following policy, then and that's something that we have to guard against. That's a problem. Policy right now does not make room for this in Pitt County. And so we can have where we're rewriting some things and specifically saying, we are going to have a laser focus on academics. Anything that is subjective is going to stay outside of the classroom, and that right is going to be relegated to the parents as it should always have been. And if we can put in the language something like that, and even in a mission statement where this is our purpose and this is our goal, and then make sure that in our policy we are making sure that, hey, there's no room for this type of subjective ideology. That's including CRT, diversity, equity, inclusion, all these ideologies that would fit under these subjective grouping does not need to be in the school. We're going to have to rewrite some policy. We're going to have to make sure that we tighten it a little bit. We're going to make sure that we're clear. Like, I know they had passed a CRT resolution in our Pitt County School Board. But a resolution is still not policy, right? So we need to have some teeth to that. It's not just like, oh, it's policy. No, if it's not followed, then there should be some consequences. If there's reports that some of the teachers are taking liberties they shouldn't be taking, then there should be consequences for those actions. And parents should stay vigilant, because obviously we're still going to be boots on the ground. If teachers find out that leadership is telling them that this is something that they should be doing, that needs to be reported. And there needs to be a safe space so that teachers are protected, because a lot of them are scared to even say anything because they're afraid to lose their jobs. But we have to make sure that we're getting into the policies and putting things in there that make it very clear that we are focused on what the schools should have been always focused, which is academics. None of this stuff belongs in the classroom. And by the way, our students here in Pitt County are falling in the 41 percentile when it comes to reading, writing, and math. I talked to my neighbor the other day. Her grandson graduated from high school, can't read. But we're making sure that they know their pronouns. We're making sure, that they have this ideology in place where these kids are feeling oppressed, or these other kids are feeling like they're oppressors. They're already feeling ashamed just because of their color of their skin. Some people are being victimized because of the color of skin. I had a conversation with somebody in the school leadership, and I said, listen, and I hate to use the card, but I did use it. As a brown person, I said, I don't appreciate the fact that you think that we need you to come in and constantly give us a helping hand. I don't want to come to the table based on my skin color. I want to come to the table because I have something to offer. And so when you are teaching these kids that the first thing that you see is their color, and that you're going to treat them a certain way because they can't handle life unless you come in and rescue them. To me, that's a soft form of racism, to be honest with you. Let me tell you, so just real quick, in Dominican Republic, okay, I had some severe set of circumstances happen to me where at 15, okay, my teachers, they were empathetic. Nobody's talking about not being empathetic. But once I stepped in the classroom, I was treated like every other child. And I remember thinking it was that ability to stay focused on the goals, finishing tasks, that helped me even overcome a very hard time. And when I would go home, before my parents passed away, there were issues going on at home. It was the education. I remember thinking I didn't have the confidence at home because I didn't have the support. But when I went to school, I felt like I could conquer the world, because you know what? I knew that I could hit the goals. My teachers believed in my mind. They pushed me to the limit. And so when I went to school, even when kids bullied me, I remember thinking as a kid, I'm like, I don't care. I'm smarter than you. So I was talking to someone, if you can teach a child, even if they're having a bad situation at home, if you can teach them that they can accomplish, and that their mind is so amazing and so wondrous that they can accomplish anything they set out to do, that kid, that confidence will carry them through those hard times. It's not that empathy is not important. I was shown that. But in the classroom, I felt that my teachers respected me. They gave me the respect of treating me like every other kid. And that's what's been constantly pushing me to keep going. Those kids, they need that.
Yeah, when you walk into a classroom, look, we've looked at probably 100 hours or more of this DEI training. Doug, you've been talking about this. We've been all over this diversity, equity, inclusion stuff. It's actually teaching educators to open the door, fling the door open and say, wow, I've got 30 students, 15 are Black. So I can't teach math. I can't teach whatever, because that would re-traumatize them. And so when you go in and look at people based on the color of their skin, that has been called racism for years. The reason, it's racism. When you're teaching that and when you're inculcating that, you were joking about adult supremacy. The Department of Public Instruction was doing trainings for, or was partnering with a group, third party, doing trainings for preschool teachers. And they floated the notion, or pounded really the notion, that punishment, discipline, that's a white supremacy concept. And I said, have you ever seen Medea? Because I'm telling you,
my parents. Yeah. I'm glad they did. Okay,
that's right.
We need that. And here's the thing, Sloan, and not that I would be in agreement with this, but if you want to, let's say that we're going to subscribe to to your thinking, and we're going to be okay with you pushing your ideology. Okay, if that's the case, then we can push teaching the Bible in the classrooms. Then if teachers want to have, I'm just saying, like, if you're going to be fair, if you want to push your religion, because that's a religion, that progressive mindset is a religion. If you're going to push your religion in the classroom, then why can't Christians do the same? And by the way, we were in a better situation when virtue was exalted in the classroom versus what we have right now. Kids were more confident, kids were more competent, kids were more selfless, kids had goals and purpose. The suicide rate was not as high as it is right now. I mean, their religion isn't working.
Well, under the Establishment Clause, on a dime can go towards promoting Christianity or any other religion, but it's Christianity is what they put a target on. However, you can spend all of this money on teaching racism, which is really what it is, teaching to stereotype, scapegoat, and shame based on skin color. That's what it's really doing. And so it is absolutely galling, is that you would be, hung out on charges in an instant. However, teaching people outright racism, our youngest children, is not. And we don't believe in spending a dime on teaching this kind of thing in the classroom. And again, the system, the way it is, it's really putting school boards kind of over a barrel, right? Because, hey, here are the standards. And if you want kids to do well on the end of grade tests, you better get a curriculum and teaching materials right up immediately. And it kind of puts everybody in a bad position. So what you're talking about is having a system that is not, reactive to that. It is proactive ahead of time, which is how you have to be. And you've got to have the stones, quite frankly, to stand up and say, no, you know what? You're going to cut our budget by 30%. Well, guess what? There's this other money that we haven't used, to your point, we haven't allocated, et cetera. It's going to be, tax neutral on the population here. It's not going to raise taxes.
Right.
And it's really working smarter and not harder. I spoke to somebody earlier today about having MAGA sitting on the school boards, because we never had that, right? We've never had the America First agenda or the Pitt County First, whatever. We've never had that mindset. One of the great things that Trump did is he put in front of people, look, when you want to kick the can down the road and say, oh, we've always done this, we can't do that, we can't figure it out. He was so great because he figured things out like that. It was common sense. Hey, don't tell me it's always been done. This isn't working. We're going to do this, blah, blah, blah. Call me whatever you want. I'm doing it.
Right.
You represent that esprit de corps that we absolutely have to need in the classroom. I mean, turning the country around. Trump did it, and we saw that. And by the way, I know, and you know, that the entire country sees now what he actually did, because we are absolutely 180 from where we were. Yeah. And so we really do need that mindset coming into this. Now, we've talked about this. A lot of the people that we back are people of faith, and that's great. But the message I believe that everybody needs to hear, I mean, this is a moment. It's an inflection point. It's much like the Tea Party, and that people really need to hear a message of, okay, whatever religion, whatever, we're not going to talk about that. It's going to be absolutely small government, the economy, and getting results. And that's something that I love about you. You are so honed in on, I'm the right person for the job, because a job has to be done.
At this point, Sloan, I agree with what you're saying. Maybe 100 years ago, when the progressives started, bleeding our schools of any type of teaching on virtue and morality and Christianity, at this point, we've got to keep it now strictly academic. If we can have organizations that come in, the church can come in and help with that. But right now, to be able to break it up, all of this, now we have to just focus on schools are meant for they're academic institutions. That's the only thing that's going to be happening in the schools. Everything else outside the school, that's fine. At the home, the parents, you want your kids to have that morality implanted in them. That is a parent's job.
Or maybe they don't. Maybe they don't actually, Sandy, and that's okay. But to your point, if you can let it all hang out, at home, that's fine. But when you come to school, your ASS is going to behave or else.
Yes.
And you're right. Absolutely. And having those type of expectations, it does something to you. It makes you better. You're exactly right. You take pride in it. I mean, when you hear adults talk about their childhood, they're always very boastful about how strict their parents were. I don't think you're ever going to hear anyone, at least I haven't, brag about how lax their parents were. In fact, that causes a lot of problems. It causes a lot of anger.
It does. I talked to somebody today. I said, listen, I'm a Christian. If the government right now decided that they were going to impose a blanket mandate pushing everybody to convert to Christianity, I would be against that. See, because I believe in choice, just like God believes in choice. It's the truth, right? He does that. So, but the progressives, see, they want to make a distinction between we're this type of narrow-minded mindset, but we're not. They are. If they decided to mandate from the government that this is what we're going to be teaching in the schools and everybody has to adhere to it, they would be the first people to jump on the bandwagon and say yes. You know what I'm saying? So again, it's not coming from the right. It's not coming from the Christians. Nope. It's coming from the progressive left religious. By the way, somebody made a really good, I've never heard this before. And I was like, that's a good correlation between, and I know some people might have an issue with this, but factions of the Puritan movement and what the progressive left is right now. And how some of the Puritans would go after so hard, persecuting people who would not adhere to the strict moral standards that they had for them. And so he was kind of making that connection, which is something that he sees the progressives doing now. If you don't believe, you're a racist, if you don't adhere to what I'm telling you, then you're a bigot, you're white supremacist. And so he was, I mean, I know that there could be some gaps in that, but I was like, I can see how there could be some similarities in that mindset.
Yeah, or how the left caricatures every church. Do this or you're burning hell. Churches aren't like that, but how they caricature it, that's what they're doing. It's really a combination of Puritanism and Sodom and Gomorrah all in one ugly little movement. I'm not sitting here saying that everybody who's Democrat believes this. In fact, many do not. Yes. I'm not saying that every legislator believes in all of this stuff, the grooming in schools in particular, but I'm not hearing, to my knowledge, I have not heard Democrats or people on the left speak out and say, wait a minute, bridge too far, not crossing it.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a pride issue sometimes with people. I don't know if it's because maybe some people are embarrassed to acknowledge that somebody else is right. I mean, it's not about who's right or who's wrong. It really right now at this point is, look, our country is going downhill really fast and it's burning. And so right now we got to do everything we can to save it. Do you cherish the Western principles that this country was founded on? Do you cherish the opportunities that you're in a system that, I mean, we've read about it in history. Do you cherish those principles? Do you cherish your country? Then guess what? Ideas is what we're running on. It should be outside of a party. It should be ideas outside of a person. It's what benefits the, humanity. I'm not saying like in a collective way, but if we are looking at what benefits my country, what benefits my family, ultimately will bleed out to what benefits my community, ultimately bleed out into what benefits my country. And so those ideas, okay, what are those ideas? Okay, a work ethic, character, responsibility, picking myself up when I fall down, pushing hard, not having a victim mentality, not blaming other people for my problems and not making excuses, but taking full responsibility for my life. Those are the things that make a community stronger. And so if you value those ideas, does it matter which party is espousing them? Just jump on the bandwagon, because we don't have time right now to be worried about those things. We really have to. It's a burning ship right now. We got to do everything we can to rescue.
Well, we have a shared destiny, and so the left has a coalition on affinity groups who are offended, and they all come together, but they don't even have shared values. We have a shared destiny, and that brings this up. Jeanette, I know. Actually, and we Facebook or I think Twitter each other friends and share things all the time. And I'll tell you what, we have gay parents in this coalition, and guess what? They also want their kids to be able to read and write. And I have to say, to your point about what the leftists are doing, that is absolutely so it's offensive, it's racist, it's bigotry, is what the argument is. Kids have to see themselves in the literature. And that's the reason they give to put in hardcore porn literally into our libraries. And I'm thinking, what you're saying is, look, kids that aren't gay, I mean, they need to see the history, the math, the science, etc. But gay kids, I mean, they're perverts. You know what they need. They're going to be in the corner reading that while everybody else is doing this. It's the most bigoted thing to say, and the most ignorant thing to sit here and suggest that gay parents of gay people expect the schools to cater to LGBTQ. It's moronic.
Right. Well, just like adults wouldn't emphasize their sexuality to children all the time. What adult thinks that's okay, right? I would assume that they're just like everybody else. They're sending their children to learn academics. Why would they want? I know nobody would want me to talk about my relationships, my hetero relationships with my husband or whatever. That's not relevant. It's not necessary. It's not important. So again, yes, it is sort of. It's just the excuse that the other side uses it, because there are people that have that mindset in that side. And it's also, it's a money-making game, like push even with the transgender material. These pharma companies are making a killing with puberty blockers. And so a lot of it is just, this is how they're making money. This whole racism issue, a lot of people wouldn't even have authored books had they not had this platform to stand on, but because they were able to stoke the emotions to such a height, they're just jumping on that bandwagon and making as much money as they can. So some of it has to do, it's not even virtuous. It's not virtuous ever, but I'm saying some people really believe what they're pushing, but some people, they're just doing it for money.
Yeah, 100%. So what you're seeing on your screen is, this is Gender Spectrum, and they are an organization that's in a lot of different schools right now. This is probably one of the most extreme things I've seen. This is what they're all about. Hey, guys, learn how to navigate a gender clinic. What age can you access it? I bet they say, 6 and up. And learn about some of the options for gender affirming care, such as having your breast cut off, being castrated and mutilated, and such as puberty blockers and hormones. So the mask is off, Sandy. This is what it is. This is an organization I'm showing you. It's affiliated, or it's connected a little bit with Disney. But not only that, it's in schools like Orange County and in Mecklenburg, in Wilmington. They're going all out here.
Yeah, it's awful. Some of it reads to me also like an ad for some sort of pharma company that's trying to push some of these things. Like right away they jump into the purity blockers. I'm like, whoa, that's quick. Nothing in there denotes to me that they cared about any child. They were pushing, everything was pushing an agenda. So it is a big issue. And I think you had said it before, piggybacking off of the anti-racism movement, we'd have the gender fluid movement, and then down the road, what's coming? Because there's an ultimate goal, right? So once you're able to establish as much mass chaos and confusion as you can, I think it's just in the erosion of individual sovereignty and national sovereignty. I mean, you're talking about if a kid doesn't
open borders.
Yeah, open borders everywhere.
Great analogy. Unfortunately, great analogy. Yeah, I mean, there's no country. There's no identity. The depression rate is going to be off the charts. And somebody made a point on, I think it was my personal page, maybe yesterday. I pointed out that Tucker had a great segment on, pharma companies should know better than to traffic all these drugs. You're probably right. At the end of the day, we're going to find out that this organization that I just put up there is affiliated somehow with the pharma. And one guy chimed in and said, look, it's the parents' job, it's parents' responsibility. Have you ever, because I know have you ever as a parent gotten something recommended by school or by the doctor and you put a little bit too much weight on it than you should have in retrospect?
Yes.
Yeah, we all
I did, and learned from my mistake afterwards. Like, I probably should have investigated a little bit more on that.
Right, but this is one hell of a mistake to make. And so you're hearing, hey, listen, your kid wants to change genders. You don't want him to kill yourself. Come on, you got to do it. You got to go with this. And a lot of parents will buckle to that. And then the next step, of course, is what you just saw. And then all of a sudden you're going, wait, what in the hell is happening? I've lost my kid. And so that our schools could be the conduit for this is absolutely unacceptable. We need better candidates. We need people like you to stand up and say, look, I don't really care who I have to fight. If it's state level, if it's my own party, even, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, it's time to be on the offensive. I mean, we've been on the defensive for a very long time, and they've been taking ground the whole time. And while we're here, like, got to pick our battles. I'm like, well, this is one hill to die on, though, because let's say, I was talking to somebody, I was like, let's say we get economic, we get all, the finest curriculum implemented, right? But they're still pushing ideology. And I said this to a friend, I was like, what does it matter if you have the finest workforce, right? And our economy is booming, and you're still a slave to your government. You're not free. I mean, let's look at China. China, I'm sure their economy is doing way better than ours. We've helped build that economy, but I'm just saying those people are still in bondage to their government. So again, the ideology warfare that's going on right now, the ideological warfare, that is a very important battle, and that is a hill to die on. We have to make sure that we expunge that language from the board policy, that we are rewriting our mission statements, that we're on board about the curriculum, that we're looking at some of those textbooks, and that we're getting feedback from parents, because there might be some things that we miss. I'm serious, because we're human. That's where the parents come in. And hey, by the way, that there are consequences for teachers that decide to go rogue. All these things are going to take a lot of work. And yes, it's a beast. It's like system upon system upon system that you're fighting, right? You would know this because you've been doing this longer than I have. You chop the head off the one section, there's another head that pops up. So it's going to take a lot of effort. It's going to take a lot of support from people too, to not 100%, you elect the people that you want in the school board, right? But you have to keep them accountable. I think sometimes on our side, we elect all the right people, and then we feel like, oh, we can go back and watch TV and just kind of like relax. No. You put us in there, and now it's your job to make sure that you keep us accountable, or letting us know what's still going on, because we need those eyes. So you have to stay very vigilant. At this point, this idea that things can go on as they used to, we understood the other side. They were always vigilant. They were, when they lost the battle, they figured out another way.
Time job. These people, and by the way, one of the reasons, you guys, that progressives cannot handle being around people like us with differing opinions, they can't handle these people in their family. You know the type. Can't handle these people in their families, can't be friends with them. It's because they're see everything through the lens of politics. And so it is a fine line, Sandy, of being an activist and not being burned out, right? Or being involved and not being burned out, and not treating everything as, okay, you believe like me? Great, you're one of the good guys. You believe this? Okay, great, you're a bad guy. Life isn't that black and white, but we've got to find some happy medium where we can participate and then, see each other as human beings. Right.
And I think we'll get there, Sloan. I agree. But I think right now, until we get to that point, we're going to have to be extra vigilant so that we can get what you're talking about. So that we can get to that point, this is the battle. This is the fight right now.
Right. It's right here. And so one of our people are asking, where's the school, or where's this happening? Actually, I want to tell you about this. Glenn Beck did a 1-hour special focusing on our work, and sadly on Wilmington in particular. I'm going to show that for you, Nancy. I'm going to put that up here and let you see it. But this is one of the things that in Wilmington, it's so infuriating. Let me tell you the story about Wilmington. Nancy, you already know this, is that, by the way, this form you're looking at right here, that is from that organization that I just showed you, from genderchange.com, whatever it is. This is the actual form. All right. And so in Wilmington, it's unbelievable. Yeah, they signed. Listen, you've heard of a support animal? They're assigning, without parental consent or knowledge, a support adult. But let me tell you what's happened in Wilmington. Around the neighborhood of 10 kids have been very badly sexually abused over the last several years. And there's some lawsuits going on right now because parents said that there was nothing done. In other words, they already had a culture of secrecy around sexual abuse of students. And then they want to institute this. If if these people aren't available, what should the student do? Get this. Are the parents aware of the student's gender status? On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rank the parents? How supportive do you think they are? Teacher, principal, administrator? That's not appropriate. Who the hell are they to tell you? That's a gender support plan you're looking at. Who the hell are school administrators to tell you if you're not allowed to say this about your child?
No, that should be completely illegal. I mean,
It's not actually.
I don't see how it can be, especially when, you have to have parental consent for all these things. My child to the doctor, I'm supposed to be with them in that room until they turn 18 years old. So how is the school taking more liberties when it with this is sort of like a health issue is what they want to call it. When I go to the health professional, I'm with my minor the whole time. That is my right as a parent. So I don't understand how they're able to do that. But I also, I was thinking about what you were saying with some of these parents feeling the pressure that they want to make sure that they are being supportive of their child, but then being made to feel like if they don't, they don't go along with this mindset that somehow we're going to have. And when we talk about parent resources should be something like, how can we help parents make that connection with the child, help build that parent-child bond? I mean, we're going to have to go and look at that too. We have all this money to pour into these programs like SEL. I'm like, how about actually having programs that encourage the parent-child bond? Because remember, everybody knows that once you have that relationship very strong, that the educator benefits from a child who has a good home life, who has a solid relationship with their parent. So why don't we put all that emphasis on that? Why don't we get out in the community and try to figure out, hey, if the parents that are supposed to be here in the meetings are not coming, how do we get those parents to come in here? I'm just saying, like, if you have all the money to put into these other programs, how about you go into the communities and figure out some of these single parents that don't know what they don't know? Why don't you go out there and help them out so that you can help build that relationship? Because you can't reach the child outside of their parent. If you truly care about that child, outside of that parent, even if they have a bad parent. Okay. I'm not talking about somebody who is in an abusive situation, who could possibly be in an endangering situation, but that is their parent. So if you care about that child's success, you're going to go through the proper order. I know they hate the whole hierarchy type of mentality, but that is the truth. That is the truth. Get yourself out there in the community. I met a principal actually who told me that she was planning on doing these things like having barbecues. And I was like, good for you, having barbecues, making relationships, making connections. Because those are the parents I feel like that feel the most vulnerable, that don't have that support and feel like they have to ascribe to these things. So we need people that go out and, you know what I mean? Parents need that kind of like awareness as well. I feel like if they really care, these educators engage the parents that way. Don't just sit there and be like, well, they're not here. So, I mean, we sent it, we did it.
Exactly. I think listen, most teachers have a great, they're in this for the right reason, right? It's a
yes,
calling.
I agree.
It's a calling for them. And I don't think, most teachers are this way, not even some teachers. I think it's a tiny percentage. So, but look, it only takes, in your district, 20 bad teachers to really mess up some children. So we know that, and that's part of why you're running. So when people want to donate, oh, by the way, Nancy, let me answer your question. Nancy, what grade level has this been giving to? My understanding is all grades. Because here's why I feel that way, and I believe that is because the school board, the diversity, inclusion, Title IX director for the entire school district gave this presentation, defended it in front of the school board also, and they're cool with it.
Wow.
So yeah, it's very, very, very bad stuff. So people, we need to help Sandy. We need to help Sandy win. If you're in and around Pitt County, I think we're going to be doing some upcoming events where we do some canvassing, door knocking, definitely going to be phone banking for you. But how do people get involved and donate?
Okay, so they can get on my website, www.sandymoyer.com, and there's a page where they can donate. You can also check me on my Facebook page, and I also have an Instagram handle. And I want to say this for Pitt County residents. There are three other school board candidates that are running. If I get in, that's helpful. But if 4 of us get in, then we can really implement a lot of change. There's 9 school board members and we only have 2 conservatives on that board, and they're doing the best they can, but they are overwhelmed. So your school board candidate is in your district, and make sure that you get out there, check out who is pro America, who is pro, tradition when it comes to the original setup for the schools. And there's a lot of those candidates that are running that care about the kids. Check those candidates out and make sure that you show up for them.
Who are they? Who are they?
Lee Williamson in District 5, Juliana Jackwith in District 2, and Kenneth Jones in District 1. So those are the other 3 candidates that are running in Pitt County, and they're really great, super stellar people, and we need to get behind them as well.
We've got to run the tables on this. I'll tell you, Mecklenburg County had their muni elections last night, and Wake County did, and we lost big in both. Mm-hmm. So we need to understand what are the lessons learned there, right? What if we're going to go into this, you guys, and think, hey, education is our issue, we're going to win big. Listen, the city council races did not go the way we wanted them to go. And you would think with as much money is being spent and wasted by cities, and with the crime rate up, you would think, wow, this is the ideal time for conservatives to win it. I can't tell you about the campaigns. I wasn't close to them. I don't know how they were run, but if you're running, reach out to some of these candidates and ask them, listen, what could you have done differently? What advice would you have? We have, a recent sample for you to look for. So if you have municipal elections near you, please do reach out to those candidates, and, collective learning is what we have to do.
That would definitely be helpful. Yeah, and very instructive. No, so thank you so much, Sloan, because I know you've been in the front lines for quite some time. I went to one of your workshops in Charlotte. It was incredible. It gave me a lot of insight. It fused even more of a fire and a passion in me. I love this country. I want my kids to enjoy what I've enjoyed, and I know that love it as well. I know parents, they hate to see how it's taking this turn, but education, I never knew how important it was until Loudoun County, when they were talking about CRT. I never understood the importance of school board races until that went down. I was like, man, that's where all of it is starting. Yeah. This ideology is being birthed and planted in the public schools, and then it moves on to higher education.
But we pay for it, and we pay for it.
Yeah, that's our money. It's incredible. I was thinking about the NCAE. They were upset with opportunity scholarships, right? When she decided to sue the state, and she was talking about because it didn't meet certain criteria, and how can we justify that this is being used for public funds? Is this being used properly? I'm thinking, like, who are you to determine how that money is being used? It's our money. There should be no requirements attached to it anyways. It should be like, hey, you want a scholarship? This is your money. Go ahead and send your kid where you want to. That's where you find out some of these teacher unions, they don't care about the kids.
Oh, they don't give a darn. And yeah, you got to take the money. Here's the thing, though. We got to take the money from the public school system and let it follow the child. That's really the only way. And then we've got to do a lot to make sure that conservative schools can flourish. We need more religious schools. If that's your thing, that's a great way, whatever religion you are. And then that's a great way to kind of inculcate children with your values. And we need a bigger marketplace, less red tape. To get into it, we need to absolutely vet these schools. I'm not saying that, but, less red tape and opening some of these schools and kind of decoupling them from the national organizations, because they're just as woke.
Yeah. And you said something very good yesterday. You said, even if people pulled out there, not everybody can afford to homeschool. Not everybody can afford to send their kid to private school. So guess what? The public schools, they shouldn't be thrown to the wayside and said, well, it's something that's not worth fixing. There are a lot of parents that can't afford to do that. And the majority of children are going to public schools. So We can't give up on that fight. We can't. We have to do everything we can, because they are a part of this country. They are the future. And if we love if we love this country, we're going to make sure that we reach that next generation and that they are fully equipped to be able to step out there and feel confident enough that they can handle goals, that they can handle life in a responsible manner, because they went to school that believed that they could accomplish goals and tasks academically. They were able to do it because they had teachers that believed in them. And I know there are teachers that are waiting to be unleashed to do the job that they were hired to do. They cannot wait to just teach. So.
Right. No
That's good.
politics, no
Yeah.
nothing, just being there for the children and making sure that we pass on knowledge so that we have an informed citizenry. So that's the name of the game. Well, thank you again for being on, Sandy.
Thank you.
It's so great to have you, and thank you for running. Thank you.